At the very beginning, I thought I was learning quite a lot about the bees. And over the years, I've noticed that I actually learn a lot more about myself through the bees.
The bees and even the other insects, they're not the evil, annoying insects you splat to death. They're vitally important animals on this planet, and we all need them. Without them, we wouldn't be able to live. They're ultimately the food for all other animals.
Moin, ich bin Quentin, ich bin 18 Jahre alt und...
Good morning, my name is Quentin. I'm 18 years old and I care a lot about the planet. I don't want all the bees and insects to die out, and yeah, I'm trying my best to do something about it. I've always been interested in nature. I grew up here in the countryside. I never had a cell phone, so I had to find other ways to keep myself busy. And I realized that nature wasn't doing so well. Then I started to build ponds and put up bird boxes for birds to nest. And that's how it all came about. I really only use the smoke when they're very aggressive. They don't like it. They think it's a forest fire.
They
haven't completed this one. But here you can see the nest. It's being born, right? Takes a while. And boom, she's on her way. Good morning. We hadn't planned at all for social media stuff to escalate like this. I made a video with a friend. We said, this message has to get out into the world. There are far too few people teaching us about these important insects and the whole topic. So we just made a video clip, uploaded it, and it went viral. And with the next clips, it happened again and again. And now I'm finally reaching people so that more people can do it and other people can start doing it. The thing is, every one of us knows the planet's going down, right? Everything's dying and stuff. And maybe that's also a reason why people watch the videos. Because I show solutions, what you can do on your balcony, in your garden, on a small scale to make the world a little bit more bee-friendly again, or just generally more animal-friendly. The interest is there. The topic of bees was just not really communicated, I think, in a way that was accessible for young people. I don't know how to put it, really.
We're here between Niendorf and Travemünde, at the Bay of Lübeck. Through the year, I move up and down the bay with my bee colonies, depending on where different plants are in bloom. I'm Stephanie Eden. I'm 46 years old and I run a small, sustainable boutique apiary on the Baltic coast. I started writing a book about reskilling as a beekeeper about 2 years ago to encourage others to do the same. I love how calm and focused it is to work at the beehives. It makes me incredibly happy to capture the taste of spring and summer in a glass, to attach labels to the honey jars in autumn, and to put them on the shelves.
Ich habe mit Ende 30 angefangen zu imkern und es ist ganz spannend zu sehen, weil
I started beekeeping in my late 30s, and with 3 young children, it's really exciting to see that they've started to naturally become curious about looking into the hives. They're learning a lot about bees. And unlike many adults, they're quite relaxed and just use their senses to observe what's happening in the hive. I worked in marketing and PR in Hamburg and Berlin for many years and found city life and everything that goes with it incredibly exciting. Then something very personal and actually very beautiful happened. We had twins, and that suddenly called my entire professional life into question. I had no prospects in my job at that
wurde
time.
mir keine Perspektive aufgezeigt, das weitermachen zu können. Ich schlucke und
I
spüre,
swallow,
dass ich gerade
and I
im
feel
Grundlegenden
that something fundamental is about to change. Wasn't it only just a moment ago that I had felt completely equal?
Klaas und ich sind Mitte 30.
Klaas and I are in our mid-30s. We've both invested a lot in our education and studies, and there's not much difference in our earnings. What's more, I've never had any reason to doubt that my employer offers its employees family-friendly working hours.
Familienfreundliche Arbeitszeitmodelle anbietet. Aber einzig mit der
But just by deciding to start a family, I seem to be catapulted out of everything I've accomplished so far. And my idea of how equal everything should be bursts like a bubble. Welcome to reality.
Eine Seifenblase. Willkommen in der Realität. Das Imkern ist
Beekeeping has really been the decision I made after having been treated like this in my professional life. It was certainly a reason to say, I'm going to upend it all. I'll just start my own business. Then I'll work according to my own standards and my own values.
meinen eigenen Maßstäben und meinen eigenen Werten.
Ich habe mein eigenes Bienenvolk gehabt, das hier auch im Garten stand. Das war
I have had my own bee colony. It was in the garden here. It was one of the first ones Mom had. It was also a very nice colony. It had a nice queen, so the whole colony was relaxed and lovely.
Entspannt und lieb war. Gerade die Bienen müssen ja auch total.
The bees have to be really well protected, because without the bees, nothing would really work at all. And all living things would be quite a bit further behind without them.
Weiter zurück wären sozusagen. Wir haben mal über die Bestäubung gesprochen.
We once talked about pollination,
Bienen,
and you just need bees, because otherwise nothing would grow.
gar nichts. Keine
Nothing at all.
Apfelbäume,
No apple trees, nothing at all.
gar nichts.
Auf der ganzen Welt gehen die Populationen an Insekten zurück. Und
In Germany and worldwide, insect populations are declining, including the pollinators, such as bees. A large, well-publicized study a few years ago showed that within 27 years, up to 70% of the insect biomass in nature reserves had declined. I'm Katarina Schmidt. We're here at one of Epic AI's test sites. We're a technology company that uses AI to try to find out how to analyze why insects are dying out.
messbar zu machen.
Here on site, we're doing a trial with a total of 14 colonies, each in its own tunnel where Phacelia plants are in bloom, which the bees love.
Was wir hier sehen, ist unser Monitoring-System für Bienenvölker.
This is our monitoring system for bee colonies. It's placed right by the hive, and all bees that enter or exit have to pass through this entrance area. Then the camera gives us data on these images of the bees. We use artificial intelligence. If you take a closer look here, you can see just how much we can do. We have up to 200 bees going in and out per minute. No human being can record that, which is why we use technology. It can help us automate something that we would not be able to track ourselves. How many bees go in and out? How many are carrying pollen? How many are not?
Unsere allererste Studie in dem Bereich war 2019 und da haben wir diese
Our very first study in this field was in 2019, and that's when we looked at the famous neonicotinoids. Our data tells us how bees that have been exposed to a treatment react versus those that haven't. That's part of getting a better understanding of how different pesticides affect bees. We know that pollen gathering has also decreased. This means that the bees have pollinated less, and the percentage of bees that gather pollen has also declined. Gathering less pollen for a few days may not be a huge problem for honeybees, but we always look at the wild bees as well. And if they don't find anything to eat for a few days, then that can be a much bigger problem. because they have a much shorter lifespan anyway. That's why these consequences are very, very important. And it's important to be able to measure them. It's a complex ecosystem. Everything is interconnected. And if we create the foundations for the smallest creatures to thrive, then larger creatures can also live well there.
When
we talk about bees dying out, it's not really about the honeybees, but all these wild bees. The honeybees have the beekeepers who take care of them. But these wild bees just don't have anyone. That's why they're the ones that are dying out right now. This one down here is an insect hotel, and that's awesome for the wild bees. And it's also really easy. You simply drill holes in some wood. That's what it looks like when the wild bees live in there. It's actually a good thing that there is some clay on it, because it means the wild bees have moved in, and they won't breed again until next year. They're in these tubes for a year, and then the next year they're ready to go again. Basically, I see it like this. Everyone has heard of honeybees. They open the door to everything else to do with nature. And if the honeybees are doing well, many other animal species are probably doing well too. First, I just got myself some books and read them. I basically devoured all the books I could get my hands on just to get an idea of what the different opinions are, what's out there. And then I joined the Beekeepers Association and got a bee colony. And then relatively quickly I got a bit more alternative and tried out a lot of other things. Because in the Beekeepers Association, you're told how things are conventionally done. But I'm often more interested in how bees actually live in nature, in old beehives or in log hives. This was a normal tree trunk, and I hollowed it out with the chainsaw. I sawed around for a day or so. And then there's also this entry door here. So it's quite a lot of work to build this kind of thing, but for me, that's the best thing about it. Look, a little bee team. And I don't have the bees to harvest lots of honey. I experiment a lot, but I don't keep bees because of the honey. It's because I find these animals fascinating. And I leave the honey inside for them. This year I took out maybe 5 combs for the family, so we have some honey. I left the rest in there. Now the boxes are all full of honey, and I don't have to feed them sugar water or anything. So they can do their own thing, and I basically just look on in amazement. It's so awesome. These honeycombs are so soft, but also so stable because they're hexagons. You can really stroke them. People think bees are aggressive. Very rarely there are a few that go crazy, but if they wanted to sting me, they would have done that already. I don't have a single sting.
Wir sind jetzt im Spätsommer, es ist Anfang August. Wir hatten gerade ein
We're now in late summer, the beginning of August. We've just had a rain shower and a small thunderstorm. The bees in the hive now are one of the last generations of summer bees. They have a relatively short lifespan, about 4 weeks. They use up all their energy collecting nectar and pollen. The winter bees, on the other hand, have to endure half a year in the hive and must warm the queen to ensure the future of the colony.
Wärmen und den Fortbestand des Volkes sichern.
My bees get to live here in a wonderful orchard, which is completely untreated. It's simply the best imaginable natural environment for them.
Was mich als Imkerin bei den verschiedenen Völkern
As a beekeeper, what always inspires and fascinates me is how the bee colonies have different characters. Some colonies are quite relaxed. I like to call them my hippie colonies, since they're very calm and chill. And when I look into the honey super, relatively little is happening there, and the bees are just living in the moment. There are also insanely aggressive colonies where 10 or 20 bees fly towards you. These are often colonies that are very, very busy and work unbelievably hard to bring in the honey. You struggle to add enough honey supers to keep up.
Und man gar nicht genug Honigräume draufsetzen kann, dem Herr zu werden.
I started just reading about it, and then I went to a beekeeping course and found a mentor at the Beekeepers Association.
She basically came as a new member to one of our monthly bookkeeper meetings. That's when we met her first. She listened carefully to what we oldsters had to say. The Beekeepers Association answers every question in such a way that every beekeeper knows what we're talking about, even if they don't know so much yet. What happens to the bee colony in the spring, summer, before the harvest, after the harvest?
Just minutes after a brief first call to Friedrich, the chair of the Beekeepers Association in our region, an invitation lands in my email inbox inviting me to a meeting the following Thursday to the village pub zum Eckkrug. I remember these old boys' clubs only too well from my time in financial communications. I say quietly to myself, unsure about what to expect from the evening, and my prejudices turn out to be almost more than justified. As I enter the village pub, whose interior looks like it hasn't changed since at least the early 1980s, I see almost exclusively older gentlemen in dignified retirement attire at my first club meetings.
Steffi has used her enormous energy to develop an exemplary apiary. She did it slightly differently than I suggested. She said, no, I want to move away from styrofoam and plastic hives. I want to use wooden hives. She did a good job. I'm impressed that it works so well. The yield is there, so our concept is good.
The Hobbyist Beekeepers Association urgently needs young people to get involved because older beekeepers are very conservative and don't really care about their bees. On a small scale in the hive, yes, they do everything there. But beyond that, ensuring there's less spraying, that agricultural policy makes changes, that agriculture itself becomes bee-friendly, I'm still waiting for that to happen. I'm Michael Grom. I'm an agricultural engineer and a professional beekeeper. I'm 50 years old and I've been keeping bees for 35 years. To me, beekeeping means being at one with nature, and for example, experiencing spring, but turned up to 11, because all the energy in spring is in the bee colony. And that's just very life-affirming, and it's great to then taste the first honey. I went to prison for fighting for a different agricultural policy. Back then, lots of gene-engineered plants were brought into the fields here. There were 1,000 hectares of genetically modified corn. I went out onto the field and peacefully ripped out the plants to preserve what was already there. I kept doing it until I was sentenced to 2 days in jail or a fine of 500 euros per day. I didn't want to pay that, so I was taken into coercive detention for 30 days. I had liquid honeys sent in because there could have been contaminants hidden in the solid honeys. I gave beekeeping talks with honey tastings. That was a big hit in the prison because people stare at the walls there all the time. And then someone turns up who's bursting with energy and offers them honey tastings.
Sehr gut aus.
This is a very young queen. She doesn't have a dot yet. Bees love variety. When the rapeseed field has withered, there's nothing left. All this diversity we had in the grain, the cornflower, the corn cockle, the corn poppy, the field larkspur, it's all been sprayed away. Society would do well to go back to that, but it doesn't. It has a subsidy system that gives money to farms that are already very, very large. Those with more land receive more money. If you have, let's say, 2,000 hectares, that's $500,000 in government money for basic agriculture, and basic agriculture means 3 crop rotation: winter wheat, corn, rapeseed. Done.
Winterweizen, Mais, Raps. Fertig.
The alternative to changing the Beekeepers Association from the inside would be to found a new association. It would have to stand up for bees and be committed to an agricultural landscape that feeds bees. It would have to get involved in agricultural policy. I think that kind of association could also take on the many young beekeepers who are now starting out and then really get the beekeeping community going again.
This really isn't easy.
Es ist natürlich auch nicht immer easy, wenn ich jetzt, wo ich angefangen habe mit meinem Blumenwiesenprojekt, dann.
When I started with my flower meadow project, I went to the local municipality and asked them for a bit of cash just to finance the seeds. That's one hurdle. And then, of course, you have to convince the farmers who have always been in charge here and tell them how to do it and say, this is how it works and this is how we're going to do it. Of course, you first have to convince them to let you dig up their meadow and sow flowers there. Most of them slam the door in your face and say, come on, get lost, kid. But there are also a few who say, yeah, man, that's a good idea. Give it a try.
Gute Idee, probier mal. Alter.
That's around 80 kilos. It's really hard. So far, I've been doing all these meadows on my own. It's also a bit difficult when I tell my friends on the weekend, hey, let's make a flower meadow. Then they say, dude, bro, what are you talking about? I want to party. So there are a few who join me, but it's still a bit difficult. I celebrate it, man. It's pure nature.
Nature. This
is a flower meadow I sowed last year. You can see only one plant blooming here right now, a wild carrot. But in spring and summer, there was much more. And something else is coming up here too. It's an experiment, really. And if it's not only bee-friendly flowers, honeybee flowers that bloom, I don't care because it might be a flower that a butterfly lands on or something. In any case, there's already much more diversity than in this normal green field. So the idea is just to try it out and see what grows. Just sow something in a small pot or similar and something will happen. My vision is that there will be enough flowers everywhere again for all the insects and for the animals. And when the insects return, the rest of nature will automatically be better again.
It's really special to really feel the rhythms of nature again. I missed that more and more during my years in the city. You can feel the seasons again. You can feel what's growing. You can observe which blossom is coming up. You look at the pollen the bees bring in and what's blooming. At the very beginning, I thought I was learning a lot about the bees. But over the years, I've noticed I learn a lot more about myself through the bees. How to find a balance, to come to the calmness that the bees radiate. With my story, I want to encourage people to listen to their own hearts and to see change as an opportunity, to believe in themselves and to know that a gap in their career is not the end of the world. On the contrary, it is a unique opportunity to move in a new direction. It doesn't have to be a great adventure like crossing the Atlantic in a sailing boat. It can be something small and subtle that makes you sparkle.
Was einen selbst zum Glitzern bringt.